So, good morning, everyone. And we're going to record this presentation this morning so that if you want to refer to it in the future, you can, but also for those that were not able to attend the presentation, it'll be available to them. So good morning and welcome to our session on new off-campus activity and travel procedure. My name is Philip Stack. I'm the Special Advisor to the Associate Vice President, HRHSE. And I'd also like to introduce three of our other presenters this morning that will be helping me. I'd like to introduce Kim Shear. She is the Field Safety Advisor. Many of you will know her if you participate in any field safety activities. She's with the Department of Health, Safety and Environment. I'd also like to welcome Jur Jones, the Associate Director. Thank you, Jur, of Global Learning within International Education and Enrollment. And then finally, Keith Lorimer. He is the Manager of Insurance and Risk Assessment within Finance, Procurement, and Planning. So this morning, what we want to do is take you through the new travel procedure, which we just launched last week. We'll be walking through the core changes to the procedure, why we made some of those changes. We're going to have an opportunity with our other presenters just to review some scenarios of how the procedure is applied and how you apply the risk assessment and follow up with the necessary planning associated with the level of risk, depending on where you're traveling and in what group you're traveling. And then finally, we want to make sure that we leave time for any questions that you might have regarding the new procedure. So like everything across the university, we really want to start by talking about and reminding everybody of our shared responsibility associated with safety. So obviously, safety is a core responsibility of the university. It's clearly articulated in the university's strategic plan, as well as the most recent launch of our values. But like everything, it is a shared responsibility involving all faculty, staff, and students. And by working together and acknowledging that shared responsibility, that way we can ensure that regardless of whether you're traveling, whether it's just off campus or if you're engaged in international travel, that you're going to enjoy your travel, it's going to be successful, but most importantly, that you're all going to return home safely at the end of the day. And we can do that by always acknowledging our shared responsibility towards each other as it relates to safety. So why did we update the procedure? Well, several reasons for that. The previous policy and supporting procedures were developed in 2011, and a great deal has changed since that time, including several amendments that we had to implement during the pandemic. And there was really a significant need to update the policy and bring it to a more current stage. So certainly, one of the reasons why we needed to update the procedure was the evolving risks from a number of different perspectives. One is the increasing geopolitical instability, and we certainly have lots of examples of that even in the last couple of months. There was the situation in terms of the attack in Venezuela. There was the impact of the oil embargo in Cuba, where we had students and groups there at the time, and then the impact in terms of their ability to return from Cuba. Certainly, recently, the incidents in Mexico with the drug cartel, and again, we had groups in Mexico that were impacted by that incident. And then, of course, we have the ongoing war in the Middle East involving Iran, the United States, and Israel, where, again, we have a number of faculty and staff in that region. In addition to the geopolitical uncertainty, we continue to see more severe incidents of severe weather and impacting our people, whether that's wildfires or floods or whatever the case may be. And then, of course, the health risks. In addition, we really wanted to use the opportunity to streamline processes, and that's from two different perspectives. One, the governance office has made a concerted effort to try and reduce the number of policies we have across the university and streamline that. And the introduction of the new procedure and moving it under our health, safety, and environment management system is part of that process of consolidating or reducing procedures that we have and policies. And then secondly, we've tried to introduce some efficiencies, which we'll talk to through this presentation in the implementation of this new procedure. And finally, and very importantly, we wanted to make sure that through this process that we enhanced our ability to contact you and support you, particularly as it relates to international travel. So one of the first changes that we made is we wanted to categorize and group the different types of travel that our university community is involved in. And we've done that by developing 4 different groups. The first one is administrative travel. So that is any type of travel that involves meeting, conferences, sabbaticals, or administrative leaves. The second group is academic travel. So that's anything involving practicums, study abroad programs, or faculty managed student groups. The third category is our field research. And very importantly, and just as a reminder, field research and that particular group or category also involves or covers field schools and field trips. So any instance in where there's data collection or site visits and research activities in the field, also involving field schools and field trips, that fits into that third category. And then our fourth category is sort of an all-encompassing category called groups, and that involves our registered student groups, our recreation programs, and our varsity athletics. So the other change that we made is we've introduced a new off-campus activity and travel webpage. And if you'll bear with me, I'm just going to stop sharing this one, and I'm just going to move to the off-campus activity and travel page and just take you through some of those changes. Sorry, there was a question there that I just missed.
Yeah, I'm just going to reach out to Valerie. I'll keep an eye on the chat for you, Philip.
Okay, thank you. So what I wanted to do is just take a minute and take you through the new off-campus activity and travel requirements webpage, and really want to thank communications, in particularly Claire Briggs and her team, for helping develop this and consolidate all the information that we had on many different websites to try and clean things up. But as you'll notice in this new webpage, on the left-hand side, we've got all the links associated with those groups of travel that I referred to: administrative, academic programs, field research, and those groups being registered student groups, campus and community rec, and varsity athletics. So you have all those quick and easy links there. But then if you go to the main section of the page, first of all, you'll see at the top, you have an immediate link to the travel procedure. So you can click on that if you want the detail on the travel procedure. And then what we've done is we've developed this easy to use risk assessment tool. And this is very important, and this is the starting point with any type of travel, is making sure that you assess the risk. So by simply going through the different risk levels 5 to 1 or 1 to 5, and just by looking at the questions that are listed under each of the risk levels and determining whether any of those statements are true or not, will help you assess the level of risk associated with your travel. So by going through that, you can very quickly determine whether your risk level is low at 1 or up to level 5, which is extreme. And then once you determine your risk level through the web page, if you just scroll down a little bit lower, it takes you to those 4 categories of travel that I talked about. And then if you click on the first one, for example, administrative affairs, here, this then tells you very quickly, based on that risk level that you've now completed, what are the required approvals that you may need for that type of travel. And again, it's that risk level assessment that informs that that level of approval that you require. And then after that, it tells you very quickly and easily what actions you then need to take based on the risk level and who's traveling. And it breaks it down in terms of whether the travel is within Canada and the steps that you may have to take, and or if it's international travel, what steps and actions you may have to take. So all of this information is readily available to you, and a very easy process in terms of then determining the risk level and the associated actions you need to take based on the type of travel. So if we go back to the main web page, and then again at the very bottom, you also have a whole list of additional resources, including FAQs. The webinar will be mounted here or linked here in a couple of days, and then a whole series of other resources that are available to you associated with your travel. So that was one significant enhancement that accompanied the new procedure. So again, I'm going to stop sharing this, and I'll go back to our main presentation. And continue on with the other enhancements that we've made to the with the introduction of the travel procedure. So one very important change with the new procedure is the mandatory requirement for everybody to register if they are participating in international travel. So this involves all travelers, whether they're faculty, staff, or students. They will have to register their international travel. So why did we make this change? Well, several reasons. One, we wanted to ensure access to up-to-date regional alerts. So by registering your travel and through our service partner that Keith will speak to in a moment, it will ensure that you have access to information of any changes in risk level or circumstances in the region or the area that you're traveling to internationally. So that may be a change in weather or an announcement of severe weather, or there may be increased risk levels, or there may be some health issue or whatever. You will be able to receive those regional updates from our service provider. Secondly, and very importantly, it enables the university to contact you in a crisis. So previously, in the absence of your registration, our ability to contact you was very complicated and very time consuming. We needed to send emails out to various faculties and departments to determine if anybody in your area was traveling. If so, where were they? What was your contact information, etc. And this could take us hours, if not days, to get a definitive list of if any of our students or faculty were in a particular region. By registering your international travel, that makes that whole process much, much easier and far more effective. And then finally, through, again, our service provider, it allows you as an individual or your research team or your student group to receive immediate health and safety support from our service provider to make sure that you're supported if something does happen. I really want to stress as part of this process that registration with your international travel is extremely simple. And again, this is a result of the relationship with our service provider. Keith will go into this in more detail in a minute, but I just want to highlight the easy ways in which you'll be able to register. First of all, if you do book your travel through Maritime Travel, the preferred provider for the university, your registration is automatic with our service provider, International SOS. Secondly, if you don't book through Maritime Travel, but you book directly through the airline or through a travel agency like Google Travel or something, all you have to do is send one email with your unedited itinerary. And again, through that process, you'll be registered with International SOS. And then finally, if you're a student group or a faculty academic program, as you work with IEE and you register through YouGo, that process will then automatically register you with International SOS. I also want to use this opportunity to talk about the benefits of registering with maritime travel. And we've really seen this recently with our situation in Cuba. One of the groups there had registered with maritime travel. And as you know, there was an impact on our travel providers and our airlines. It was very easy to work with maritime travel as a group in order to reschedule travel and get our students and staff back to Canada. It was done very efficiently. We had tremendous support from maritime travel in rescheduling and rebooking those flights. In another case, we had individuals that booked their travel independently outside of maritime, and it was a far more complex process. It took us longer, it was more complex, it was not as efficient, and it was certainly more challenging in order to arrange for alternative travel back. So there are many good reasons to use maritime, and it can really assist you and make your lives easier and our lives much easier and more efficient and effective in terms of if alternate travel arrangements do need to be made. Another enhancement to the procedure are our travel checklists. This is relating to low-risk travel, whether that be domestic or international. And we have developed 3 different checklists, one for administrative travel, academic programs, and field research. And again, this is just for low-risk travel, but all these are is just simple reminders of best practices and actions you should take to ensure that your travel is safe. So things like it's just a reminder to make sure you inform your supervisor that you're traveling, that you provide up-to-date contact information, that you have contact phone numbers if you're in a group, that everybody has the contact information of each other, remind you about the simple normal safety precautions that you should take in terms of traveling to a certain country. And again, it's just what the prudent person would do when traveling internationally or domestically, and just a reminder to go through the checklist and of the things that you should do. It's very important to note there is no requirement to submit or have the checklist signed off or approved and so on. It's just a tool that we've developed to help ensure that your travels are safe and that you return safely at the end of those travels. So now what I'll do is I'll turn to Keith, and he can walk us through our service provider, International SOS, and the significant benefits that they can provide to you if you're traveling internationally. Keith?
Thanks, Philip. Yeah, International SOS is the service provider that we use to support our travel. For all university affairs, International SOS will support any travelers, whether faculty, staff, or students, while it's university affairs. Now, regarding registration, I see a few questions on this one as well. It's just, if anyone books through Maritime, there's a direct feed from Maritime of the itinerary into ISOS. So there's no additional work. It's automatically uploaded into ISOS, and it's just a travel itinerary as well. So we just know where you're traveling from and traveling to, and there's a list of current travelers and future travelers that is in ISOS so we're aware of where people are traveling. So there's nothing that anyone needs to do if they're booking through Maritime. But there is the registration process that Phil had mentioned further in the slides as well. But what is International SOS? Sorry, Phil, can you just quickly go back to the previous slide? So the diagram on the right really captures everything that they do, and I'm not going to go through everything. That's there on the slide. It's also on our webpage. But they provide a wide range of services, but at a high level, they're available to look at to support a traveler in their pre-planning wherever they're going. It might be a low-risk country, but they just want some additional information. So you can do some research. You can type in whichever country you're traveling in, and it'll provide travelers a summary of that location and anything such as visa requirements, medical issues, or common diseases in that location to advise the traveler what they may need to be concerned with while traveling. They can also provide you a briefing if your location is a little higher risk, so they can take your itinerary, review it, provide recommendations, and also give you a briefing of where you may or may not want to go on your travel. This will likely come up with when on the level 3s and level 4s, which will also be reviewed by SMEs. So they can direct all travel and make travelers aware of what risks they are potentially going to be exposed to. Now, during travel, also they can provide assistance, so that you're aware of you made your assessment of your location, but maybe during your travel you've miscalculated your medication, or you need some sort of medical assistance, like maybe you've slipped and hurt yourself. International SOS can be contacted, and they can direct you to where to obtain the sufficient medication, where the best medical providers are, or anything else that you feel you need. Anything that's really on this diagram here, they can assist you with. And in the more extreme situations, which Philip mentioned, to do with Cuba, Mexico, and the Middle East, where travel has been arranged by Maritime, and for whatever reason to do with the incident and the airspace closed, or travel has been limited for commercial travel, International SOS can also provide our travelers with assistance of getting out of that country or finding a location which is safe for them to return back to Canada. So this is after anything that Maritime is not able to provide. So the first point of contact is Maritime, and then ISOS can step in if there's limitations to Maritime service. Next slide, please, Philip. So what else does ISOS have? Well, they've also got the app, which provides a lot of the services that their webpage does. And a link to the webpage is included as part of this presentation. So initially on the app, well, just on registration for the app, once you download it and type in your Alberta email address, International SOS will lead you through the process of how to register. It's fairly straightforward, and it should take just a few minutes on there. Now, the app itself, once you've downloaded it, and there's a QR code on this page to the International SOS app, you can find your location information. You can do your assessment of what concerns you need to be aware of for your travel. And also on the second one, where it's got the map of Spain, it can provide you some guidance of where you need to go in this emergency situation if you need healthcare. One benefit for the app is that you can actually switch on location-based alerts. It is automatically off because it doesn't track anyone unless you give it permission. You can switch on location-based alerts. So if something happens in your location or nearby, it will give you a notification to say, oh, there's a fire. You might want to consider rearranging your travel requirements if the fire is located near the train station you're planning to go to, or there's other sort of instance, maybe there's some sort of civil unrest or something along those lines that maybe not on the news yet, but there's a communication that ISOS can provide travelers. So you can then make that decision of what to do with your travel. And ISOS can actually provide assistance as well if you're not sure. So you can, if you need to change your travel plans, ISOS can help through the app to guide you where you need to go. In addition, if you're actually physically needing assistance, and this is where it's important for the registration process and how the university can assist, is that you can, if you are in an emergency situation, you can contact for assistance through ISOS. Just directly through the app, there's a button that just says need assistance, and you can select it. And that will then send a notification to ISOS, who will then make the university aware. And then the university can use our resources and any other services that we have to provide assistance to the traveler if need be. And this is all directly through the app. So you don't need to worry about phone calls or anything like that. And the app works through self-service or Wi-Fi. So as long as you've got either of those, you should be able to get connection to International SOS and their services. Now, just on this is a further enhancement for the app in the more extreme circumstances for civil unrest. What happens is the university itself can send out a communication to say, by the way, we see something that's happened in this location. Are you okay? Do you need assistance, or are you in the area? But sometimes, because events happen 24/7 at not the convenient time for work days, ISOS actually sends out communications themselves directly to travelers. So they see something. If we take a situation like Mexico or the Middle East, they will send out a communication to all travelers based on itinerary to say, this is, we see your itinerary and you're in this location. Are you okay? Do you need assistance, or are you not in the area? It's done through phone call, text, or email, and there's a cycle there of 3 cycles over 60 minutes. And what then happens is the university then gets provided a list of reports of, these are the individuals that we know based on itinerary are in this location. These are the ones that are said they're okay, and these are the ones you really need to focus on because they're either said they need assistance or they haven't responded. So that then allows the university to narrow down our focus on who is the critical people to assist in that situation. So this is, and this is all directly through the app. You don't even need to do anything yourselves on there. You just need to respond if you see that communication. Just the one response will be sufficient. Yeah, the next one is, in addition to that communication that ISOS can send out, there is a feature that's called Auto Emergency Check-in. Again, you need to manually select it under your profile. But that then takes, when they ISOS sends the communication out to say, are you in the area? They can actually see as part of that, say, actually, you're just outside the area, your class is safe. So then you don't, as a traveler, need to do anything. It just notifies back to the university that these folk are safe, or these people are in need of assistance. It just helps narrow down that list of folk that need emergency response. And this is only if you approve for it to be switched on, because ISOS for the app as a default does not track anything. It just notifies your through your itinerary. You need to physically switch on the location-based alerts as well as emergency check-in for it to not necessarily track you. It just once an emergency happens, it then checks to see where you are if you are in that location. And you can switch them off when you return, and so you don't have to keep it on there. So it's only user-based. If you don't switch it on, the university will ultimately reach out directly to you through the communication channels. So that's really a summary of ISOS, and it's really there to enhance traveler support during travel, and allows the university to help do the support where we need to and use our additional services. Thanks, Philip.
Great, thanks, Keith. So just in terms of registering, so again, we just wanted to stress how easy this is for your international travel. If you do book through Maritime Travel, the registration is automatic. And then if you use another service provider, there are 2 emails that are available. If you book your travel yourself through an alternative travel provider, you just send an email from your U of A email address to the address that is shown there, the first one, and you attach your unedited itinerary to that email, and it'll go directly to ISOS, and then they will upload the data from your itinerary into their notification system. Now, in some cases, you may have an assistant, a supervisor, for example, or a department chair may have an assistant who books the travel for that supervisor or department chair. And again, you just use a different email address, but you copy the other email address as well. And again, you've got to send it from your U of A email, and this will ensure that, again, that itinerary is attached and then uploaded. So you do not have to book your travel yourself through this alternative provider. An assistant can do that for you. And again, through these different emails, that itinerary will be registered with International SOS. And then if you're a student or student group and you go through the YouGo process through IEE, once they have all that data in YouGo, they'll take that appropriate data and information and upload your itinerary into International SOS for you. So the process is very, very simple, but the benefits are significant to you and to the university to ensure that you're safe by registering your international travel. So as it relates to field research, really nothing has changed for field research and all the processes that you would normally follow, with the exception of the need for you and the entire research group to register your international travel, as I've just identified in the previous slide. So as always, you will continue to work with the Field Research Office and through Kim and the incredible resources and expertise she provides when you're developing your or preparing for your field research. You'll follow the normal exercises and processes in completing your field activity safety plan. But then, of course, with the addition here that for all the members in the field research group that are traveling, they then register their international travel. And then finally, just a reminder that if you are traveling with sensitive U of A research information or technology and so on, that you consult the Safeguarding Research Office to make sure that that data and that equipment is protected. Or if you're going to certain high-risk countries using the risk matrix, that you follow any procedures that may be required to ensure that that data, that research, or that sensitive technology is appropriately protected. So overall, the benefits of the new procedure we think are significant, and there are a number of them, not only to the individual traveler, but to the university as well. As it relates to the traveler, we've tried to simplify things through the use or implementation of checklists for low-risk travel, just as simple reminders, but no really administrative work involved. We've provided through this enhanced access to pre-departure information, as Keith has suggested, and we strongly recommend that you take advantage of this information and through our service provider. Thirdly, the immediate access to medical and security information. Again, by downloading the app, you can have immediate access to that information. And then, of course, with that, there's the peace of mind that you have that 24/7 global support. So again, regardless of whether you're traveling, where you're traveling, what time it is, and so on, you have that access to our service provider if you need any assistance as a result of an incident or a medical emergency. And then, of course, there's the ease of travel registration for your international travel, as we've indicated. As it relates to benefits to the university, it enhances our ability to contact you in emergencies. The process is so much easier and more comprehensive to ensure that we can reach you. There's improved risk assessment capabilities, again, through our service provider and the information that they can provide us. And then as things change, as they can change rapidly, we have access to that updated information. And then, of course, through the procedure and the enhancements and the changes that we've made, we think that we've moved forward and we're applying best practices through the procedure and how you should plan for and implement your travel both domestically and internationally. So we do believe that there are significant benefits that are being brought to you as a result of the update to the new procedure. So what I'd like to do is just take a couple of minutes to just take you through 3 different scenarios dealing with administrative travel, for an academic group traveling, and then field research, just so you get a sense in terms of how the new web page works, the application of the risk matrix, and then the determination of what actions you need to take as it relates to that type of travel. So the first one is administrative travel. In this particular scenario, we have a faculty member traveling with a graduate student to Berlin to attend a 4-day research conference. And based on the Global Affairs Canada ranking, Berlin or Germany is ranked at level 2 as a travel advisory. So the first thing you do through the risk matrix, you start in column 1, column 2, the risk category, who is traveling. So in this case, we've got a faculty and a graduate student, so it's low risk. The location, as I mentioned, it's exercise a high degree of caution because you're traveling to Berlin. The risk activity is considered no greater than those encountered by average participants on a day-to-day basis as you're just attending an international conference. And then finally, as it relates to access to emergency services, in the city of Berlin, clearly you have immediate access to a range of emergency services. So overall, your risk level is 1 or low. As a result of that, you just want to follow up and ensure that you notify your supervisor, or the graduate student notifies their supervisor and gets approval for that travel. We strongly encourage you to use the checklist for the low risk travel for international travel and administrative affairs to apply your due diligence. Ensure your international travel is registered, and we've talked about how that is done and how easy that is. We strongly encourage you to download the iSOS app and permit those notifications that Keith talked about, because those are so important as things can change rapidly in terms of risks or incidents. And then just take normal precautions that you would based on that low risk assessment of where you're traveling to. So the next scenario, I'm going to turn to Zher, and she'll talk about a scenario with an academic program. Zher?
Thank you, Philip. Good morning, everyone. As Philip introduced, I'm Zhi Jones. I work closely with my wonderful colleagues, Marcus Uransola and Doug Ware in IEE on risk management of UVA students going abroad on academic programs. The scenario we propose for risk assessment of an academic program abroad involves an undergraduate student applying to travel to Pakistan. The student will participate in a 4-week-long full credit experiential learning program located in Karachi. To assess the risk for this travel, we're looking, as Philip just did, at 4 risk categories: who is traveling, location of the program, activity, access to emergency medical services. In our scenario, the risks around academic activities and access to EMS are low, and however, the location of the program is problematic. If we look at Pakistan as a country as a whole, it has level 2 travel advisory from the Global Affairs Canada, which should not be a concern. But Karachi has a level 3 travel advisory, which is to avoid non-essential travel due to a volatile security situation, and that includes the threat of terrorism, sectarian violence, and kidnapping. Because of this advisory on the program location, this travel needs the approval from the dean or their delegate. To help the approver with the decision, we work towards determining if the risks associated with the location are acceptable or manageable. And we consider several important questions. For example, does the student have sound mitigation strategies? Does the student have health, travel, and liability insurance in light of the travel advisory? Are there support structures in place, such as financial and logistical support for the student? And etc. And this question should be addressed in a thoughtful and responsible manner in the student's risk assessment and management plan. We call it RAMP in short. And the plan is developed in consultation with the subject matter experts from our unit and from international SOS and host university, organization, or local partners. And when the RAMP, this plan is completed, our risk management coordinator, Marcus, who is in this call, reviews the plan and will determine and recommend determine whether or not the quality of the plan and the strategies are meeting our standard for risk mitigation and management. And then he will make a recommendation whether or not this travel can go ahead or should go ahead or not. Then the plan is submitted to the approver for review and approver, and the final decision approval will rest with the approver. That's our scenario. Now we'll welcome questions later. Thanks, Philip.
Great, thanks, Shir. I'm now going to turn to Kim, which will take you through a scenario involving field research.
Hi, I'm Kim Scher. I'm the field safety advisor here within HSC. So our scenario is a typical one, really, based with researchers, usually faculty and graduate students. They're flying to Northern Canada, where they will repair and maintain remote monitoring sites. There's helicopter work involved, possible wildlife encounters, fairly significant large polar bears, perhaps, remote areas, and those remote areas are more than 40 minutes from EMS. And so the requirements for approval would be, we changed this in 2024, but you submit your field activity safety plan to a central registry. It's reviewed by safety advisors if you have an advisor or officer within your faculty, or by me if you don't. Subject matter expert review has to occur when risk is high, like in this case. The high is the isolated work site to EMS, constituting that high risk level there. And then approval is done by the chair or the dean in faculties with no departments. For mitigation, key considerations are you must determine if the risks are associated, the risks that are associated with this program or field activity are acceptable. But you look at mitigation strategies, so things like bear awareness training, possible hiring of bear monitoring services. This is where someone comes out with you with, appropriate bear deterrents like firearms or such. You basically collaborate with reputable helicopter companies for their safety briefings, following their guidelines, directions. And that we recommend in these remote situations that researchers have wilderness first aid training, so they can perhaps have to keep someone alive for that time before the EMS arrives. And then, of course, your emergency response plan, which is embedded into the field activity safety plan, has all that kind of detail in there on how you would manage rescue from a remote location. There's on this link, there's lists of examples of various field research activities all across the board, so not just with high, but all of the levels, and it gives you an example there. So you are encouraged to go to that and see where yours may fall. Any questions you can ask later.
Great. Thanks very much, Kim. And I just want to remind everybody in terms of how the risk matrix works, and as Kim spoke to, it's the highest risk that you need to look at in the various 4 categories, and it's that whatever is at the highest risk determines the risk level overall for that particular travel. So we're going to wrap up here so that we can then go into some questions. So there are all the links, and we will share this presentation with you afterwards. So you have that QR code for the app that Keith referred to. And then, of course, you have all the links here to resource information that we've spoken about today. And then, of course, if you have any questions, there's also we have key contacts, again, depending on the category of travel that you're involved with. And all of the contact information is here via these email addresses. And then, of course, there's that new web page and the FAQs and so on that are available through the web page. So with that, I'd now like to open it up to any questions that anybody may have regarding the procedure or anything that we've talked about today. So maybe if you can just raise your hand. And then Michelle, I know you've been monitoring the chat. Maybe do we want to start with you? Were there any questions through the chat that we should be addressing?
So there was one question that we answered about travel in Canada, and yes, the app works in Canada, but of course evacuation would be handled differently because we're not international in country. There was another question about ISOS covering the entire globe. Are there countries or regions that currently or temporarily do not have ISOS coverage? And then how does that support it? I think, Keith, I might throw that one to you for some answers there.
Yeah, so ISOS is not like the services, and the app is unless it's internet outage. There's no limitation of them services for any particular country. The only challenge would be is where there are sanctions. Sometimes ISOS is not able to actually work directly within the country. So, for example, things like North Korea, countries most people are unlikely to be traveling in any case. However, communication can still be provided through ISOS, and if someone is in one of these countries and needs assistance, we do have other services that can be used if need be. So it does work. They might not be able to operate, but we can provide some other services.
Perfect. I think those are the main ones from the chat, Philip.
Great. So I'm just going to open it up then. If you can either raise your hand or just raise a question if you have regarding the procedure, the supports that we've provided, the assistance through ISOS, or if you have any specific questions regarding the scenarios that we presented.
I don't have a question, Philip, but more of a comment. And I think that you kind of alluded to it in your presentation as well, is that travel is becoming increasingly complex in the world, and that we have, in the past 4 weeks, there have been 3 weekends where my weekend has been interrupted by challenges that travelers have had who are on university business. So a recognition of that as well. And when we're contemplating travel, making sure that we're paying attention to those ISOS advisories, I think, would be my advice. Sometimes we can't control what happens. We don't know what's going to, but there are occasions where those ISOS advisories could give us some pretty good information before we leave to help guide whether or not this is a good idea at the time. Because although we do have ISOS, sometimes it's not that easy, even with them, to get out of a country quickly.
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. Very good comment. All right. Well, if there's no other questions, I want to thank everybody for joining us this morning. Of course, I want to thank Keith, Kim, and Jer for participating in the presentation and all the incredible support and resources available through their respective offices to assist you with your international travel. And this procedure is now in effect. So the old policy has been rescinded. So this is the process to follow now, as articulated in the procedure. And to Michelle's point about just the increased challenges with international travel in particular, we do really want to ensure that you take advantage of those services that are available through the respective offices or through International SOS, and that you download that app, which is so important, and also strongly encourage you to select the notification processes in your personal profile so that we can reach you in the event of an incident. So thank you all for joining us this morning, and hope you have safe travels wherever they may take you in support of the university's mission. So if there's nothing further, that will conclude our webinar for today. And thank you for everybody attending and our presenters. Take care.